Hello, and today I want to talk a little bit more about RSV. We're approaching winter here in New Zealand and in the Southern Hemisphere, and RSV was something that was talked about a huge amount last year. In fact, it caused a great amount of fear in the community, and there were several outbreaks, and unfortunately there were actually 9 deaths here in New Zealand. That's alarming. And I thought, well, what is it that we can do to better prepare ourselves as we go into this winter, 2023, so that we can have robust health and well-being and live our best lives? Now, RSV stands for respiratory syncytial virus, and it's a really common virus, so I've discovered. In fact, most of our children, by the time they reach age 2, they will have had at least 4 exposures to this virus. And for, I would say, 80 to 90% of those children, you won't even have known that they had any kind of illness or sickness at all. They will be asymptomatic, so they'll be exposed to it. Their bodies will cleverly form an immunity to it, and you'll blink and it'll all be missed. Now, for some people, obviously, it's a little bit more serious. And as the name kind of gives it away, it does tend to affect our respiratory system. For most people, the symptoms are more like a cold. So you might get a runny nose, you might feel a bit tired, you might feel a bit run down. But for others, it will actually affect the upper respiratory tract. And I guess the complications that can occur from it is that it can cause bronchitis or bronchiolitis and can lead to pneumonia. So that's the more serious end of things. And for those of us who are immunocompromised, which does tend to be younger babies because they're relying on their mothers for that immunity, and certainly the older population or anyone who has a chronic condition or a comorbidity is going to be at more risk. And I guess those people are the ones that we want to protect and keep their immune system robust and healthy. Now, of those 9 people, I'm pleased to report that none of them were children. So of the 9 that died last year, only those that actually had a pre-existing condition who were already chronically unwell had this complication of the RSV virus and sadly lost their lives. And that is a sad fact. Obviously, we're aiming always to have no deaths. That would be the ideal, wouldn't it? But something strikes me as really interesting. And that is, why is it that some of us can be exposed to a virus, or a bacteria for that matter, and succumb and express symptoms and become ill with that, and some of us don't even know that we've become unwell or even that we've formed an immunity to that? It's interesting, isn't it? Even in the same household, we can have some people who are exposed to that virus become quite unwell, and others who are exposed to the same virus and they're not unwell at all. These viruses exist in our environment all the time. They tend to affect us more at certain times of the year, not because they're more prevalent, but typically because we're not as immuno-robust as we could be. So it's really interesting. In the newspapers, as I was doing my research, we discovered that actually there was a higher incidence of RSV and outbreaks last year. But we think that actually that could be because we had periods of high stress over the last 3 years due to COVID and the pandemic. And we also had periods of time where we were locked up, so our immune system wasn't getting the same flex and challenge that it would if we were out and about living our normal lives. And the other big factor that they've put this down to, which is something I've just spoken about in a previous video, is that our vitamin D levels are often deficient or down at those times of year because we've been indoors, we haven't been out in the sunshine, and therefore we're a little bit more immunocompromised. So I do think that's interesting to note that, yes, RSV does tend to affect us as a population more in the winter and the spring months, but maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it is because we are not as robust in our immune responses. We could be other times of the year where we're getting plenty of sunshine, we're moving around a lot, we're out and about, and therefore we are flexing our immuno muscle. Okay, because I think immunity is a little bit like that. A little bit like when we are working out at the gym, the more that we can build strength and robustness into that immunity muscle, the more we can harness our health and well-being. So that's an interesting thing. So let's go back to why is it that some people get sick and some people don't? And I think it does come back to the host. How healthy or how robust is your immune system at that particular time? Now, life, as we know, is not a constant, and there are different stresses that will be affecting us all the time. A new mother who's sleep deprived and has that broken sleep and is perhaps still recovering from her birth is perhaps not going to be as robust as someone who's getting a full 8 hours every night, is able to get out into the sunshine, is able to move their body in a way that challenges them, but also creates that strength and mobility. So obviously, some of us will have more emotional and mental stress at times than others. All of these things tend to impact our host and our ability to then be robust when we're exposed to these different viruses. So with that in mind, knowing that it's not necessarily the exposure to the bug that will cause us to become sick, what can we do to help us build stronger, more robust immune systems? As a chiropractor, I'd be remiss not to talk about the nervous system, because it is the nervous system that actually drives our immunity along with every function in the body. And in order for our nerve system to be flourishing, to be optimized, we need to make sure it can work without any interference. So we want clear messages literally traveling from the brain down the spinal cord and then out to the body and vice versa. And when that happens unimpeded, our immunity is more robust. All of our functions are going to be more efficient than they would be with that interference. Interference tends to occur in the spine or to the nervous system when we are not able to adapt to the stresses in our everyday life. So where we can adapt different stresses on the system, we should. Now, sometimes those stresses are outside of our control. Our financial situation may not be directly in our control. Our, if we're going through some kind of trauma, that may not necessarily be in our direct control. But there are other things that we can do that are in our direct control that we can help boost a free functioning nervous system. Get checked by a chiropractor would be one thing. Another thing is making sure we're getting out and moving our body in a really positive way, not overstressing it, but getting mobility, strength and movement into the body. Another thing is making sure our mindset is right, having a positive outlook on life and being grateful for the wonderful joys in your life is a really important factor actually with regards to your health and well-being and your immunity. And there's lots of research that shows that. Making sure we're putting the right nutrition into our body, because that really is the fuel which powers the body and the nerve system and everything that functions in the body. So we're putting the right building blocks in. We're going to help the body build a more robust immune system. Having purpose in life is also something that the research is now showing, is that being able to wake up in the morning and knowing that we're somehow contributing to the greater good of humankind or mankind or yourself or your family really actually makes a big difference. So there are lots of ways we can help build our host, our body's ability to be more robust and more flexible, adaptable when it is in contact with different viruses and bacteria. And that's something that is within our control. Making sure our nerve system is clear of any interference so that it's able to perceive its environment in an accurate and optimal way also helps boost our immune system. So let's be really robust this winter as we head out and enjoy our best lives and keep healthy and keep well.